That's ours. The modern period. This is y'all go to either the British West Indies, French West Indies, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands. Why do you think they speak English in Bahamas, and English in Jamaica, and French in Martinique, and Dutch in St. Croix and Aruba, and Spanish, Spain, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Cuba? That's part of our country. That's our empire. That's the modern period. Empire. Europe, we got this. We got this. And then in the 1950s, the postmodern period starts when the Africans start saying, get out. No, we're going to run our own country. Now, they still speak English in Ghana because the British took over Ghana. They still speak English in Nigeria because the British took over Nigeria. They speak Spanish in Angola, Luanda, because it went from Portugal to Spain. They speak Portuguese in Mozambique because that was a part of the empire. That was a part of the Portuguese empire. They still speak Portuguese in Brazil. The Arawak Indians were speaking Portuguese. They still speak Spanish in Argentina and Paraguay and Uruguay and Chile, all that in the South. All that's the modern period. Now you start talking about modern history and the notion of empire. What time, when did I say it began? 14 what? And guess what happened to us in the 1490s and 1500s? Huh? I hear it over here. The transatlantic slave trade and the Protestant Reformation. First of all, there is the Asiento passed by the Catholic Church, which says it is all right for you to trade in human flesh. But then the Protestant Reformation gets into these great theological discussions about transubstantiation, consubstantiation, and doesn't mention nothing about slaves. They're holding slaves. They're holding Africans enslaved. The slave trade. Way at the end of modern history, something else happens because Ghana declares its independence and gets free in 57. But 9 years before that, two other things happen that have to do with Jews and Christians and Muslims and you and me and the world. 1948, on two different sides of the world, 1948. Actually, north and south on the continent of Africa. In South Africa, for 1948, apartheid becomes the official doctrine of the country down here in Africa. Up here in Africa, 1948, the state of Israel is created by white people to solve a European political problem. That ain't got nothing to do with the Bible. Hitler's killing of the Jews, and we don't even talk about the fact that he killed 6 million Christians and blacks and gypsies. You know, we just look at the Jews. But to solve the problem of what happened to the displaced European Jews, a land was created in 1948, right at the end of the modern period, before the postmodern period, called the State of Israel. That is not the Israel in your Bible. It ain't got nothing to do with the Israel in your Bible. There were no European Jews in your Bible. In fact, when you look at this historical line here, Arthur Koestler, one of the books I gave you initially, Arthur Koestler's book, The 13th Tribe, points out that there were no European Jews until 700 AD, 700 CE, Christian era. That's when you start getting European Jews. But this 1948 decision is where you really get tension now in terms of the fights between Christians and Muslims and Jews, because the Jews who are European Jews who are now said you have the right to go live in Israel, in Palestine, displacing Palestinian people, that adds to and exacerbates, and that's a whole separate issue, the political issue, separate from historical, classical history, modern history, separate from your scriptures. This has to do with the Balfour Declaration, has to do with Britain, has to do with the agreement that we're going to put these displaced European Jews in somebody else's country and call it the State of Israel and put the people who live there out. Now, the United Nations, not Jeremiah Wright, the United Nations has passed several resolutions saying that that is illegal, it is a crime against humanity. The International Court of Justice says the same thing, that they need to give those lands back to the people who live there. They need to retreat. They need to stop building settlements, and they darn sure need to take that wall down. They're building up a wall to say Palestinians can't come across this wall. Palestinians mean every Palestinian. Palestinian Jews, Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Muslims, Palestinian atheists, Palestinian agnostics, Palestinian intellectuals, Palestinian doctors and nurses who work over here. Y'all stay on that side of the wall. Jimmy Carter calls it, Desmond Tutu calls it apartheid. It is apartheid. It has to do with a political decision. Apartheid in northern Israel, just like the apartheid that became official in southern Israel. Now, move away from the political for just a minute, because y'all get very nervous. Because some of your Jewish friends will call you anti-Semitic as soon as you start trying to point that out. Which has always amazed me and amused me, because Arabs are Semitic. So how are you going to be anti-Semitic if you're pro-Arab? That's an oxymoron. Besides, Semitic has to do with the language. And the Semitic languages, when they're talking about sibling rivalry, those languages are first cousins. Those languages are just like each other. Those languages spoken in that part of the world are consonantal languages. Whenever you see the consonants, you can tell what the word means. This one, with the mark over the S, is pronounced sh. This one, without the mark over the S, is a s. So that this is shalom, this is salam. The languages, the Semitic languages, are first cousins. In fact, if you learn, Arabic kids can speak Hebrew, or really contemporary Hebrew, it's not biblical Hebrew, and Jewish kids can speak Arabic, because the languages are just that close. It's like very similar to Portuguese and Spanish. Somebody was asking me, I think we were in Brazil 2 years ago, they said, have you ever noticed how similar Portuguese is to Spanish? I said, have you ever looked at the map and seen that Spain and Portugal, they share the same geographical territory? You're talking about going from here to Evergreen Park between Spain and Portugal. And the same thing with the languages, the Semitic languages that are consonantal languages. But to come away from the political now, and to here is where the fighting and the killing, particularly when you add these 4, 5, and 6 together. Theological dissonance. I've been sharing with our seminarians and our MIT students for years something that feeds into this problem of sibling rivalry, something that feeds into the Jewish, Christian, Muslim, international, national, local fight, misunderstanding, and anger, visceral responses, and people want to fight, shoot, and kill one another. If you don't remember anything else from today,